Post-Le Mans, we've come to Johnny Mowlem's office, surrounded here by some trophies, but a good time, I think, to reflect that it was a great result at Le Mans with the Aston Martin and Bond, getting Red River Sports their first international class victory, but also a good time to reflect on your 9 24-hour races there, which all started, of course, back in 2000 with an Australian team.
Yes, actually, funnily enough, that was my first ever Le Mans with Skea Racing International and Rowan Skea, who the wealthy Australian businessman, and he got factory support from Porsche Australia. We had David Murray and Sasha Masson as my teammate. That back then, Sasha Masson, factory Porsche driver as well, and we ended up having a great result. We're going into the final lap. We were only 4th place, but obviously at Le Mans you have to actually take the checkered flag to classify. And the 2nd and 3rd place had a coming together on the last lap, which meant that we ended up finishing 2nd, and I got to stand on the podium and with the sea of people in front of me, and it's an experience I'll never forget. And unfortunately I went back another 8-9 times to try and repeat that feat, and never actually managed to get on the podium again, because always running in the top 2 or 3, leading the class, doing well overall, and never quite managing to get to the finish.
2006, 2007, both years you were paired with former Grand Prix drivers, Christian Fittipaldi and then Mika Salo.
Yeah, Christian Fittipaldi was great fun. And interestingly enough, that was a driver that I drove with at Le Mans. That was his first ever Le Mans in 06. We were in the Semco Saline with Jeff Jangrande as team owner. And he said to me that he'd obviously done the Indy 500, he'd done the Monaco Grand Prix, been a Grand Prix driver, and he said to me that he'd never experienced anything like Le Mans for the atmosphere. And when we were on the drivers' parade, it just blew his mind. And I think back then on the drivers' parade, you still didn't have the barriers lining the street, so people could literally come out to you on the back of the old Bentley or whatever old car you were on and get really up close and personal with the drivers. Obviously, it's a little bit more restricted these days, but he had a fantastic experience. And then in 07, probably the one that got away for me, that was the Risi Ferrari. That's the one that hurts the most even now. We were comfortably the quickest car. We were leading our class by nearly 3 laps. I was driving with Mika Salo and Jamie Mello, and unfortunately Jamie hit some lubricant that had been dropped out of someone's radiator going into Mulsanne Corner and had a big accident, which effectively ended our race. And of all the times over the 10 times I've done Le Mans, that is probably the one where really, truly, we genuinely would have won our class without any issues at all.
Now, 2011 was the year you became a Lotus factory driver when Danny Behar decided to put a big program of motorsport together for Lotus.
Well, in some ways, I say nowadays that that's probably one of the biggest achievements of all my Le Mans, because we went to Le Mans, it was myself and James Rossiter as the factory drivers, and we were joined by Jonathan Hershey. We went all over the world racing, and the car was only a piece of paper, sort of a diagram on a piece of paper in October of the year previous, in 2010. So I was fortunate enough to be starting the race at Le Mans. And I said to James, right, might as well pack our stuff because we'll be headed home by 6, 7 o'clock tonight. Race starts at 3 or whatever it was. The thing kept going and going and going, and we ended up finishing 7th in GT. We didn't have much pace, if I'm honest, but the car kept going, and we were 3rd out of who were registered in the WEC class. So we actually got like a WEC podium at Le Mans in terms of points. And it was an astonishing result for us to actually get to the finish with an engine that up until then had never run more than an hour and a half. And for Lotus, that was a huge achievement just to finish. And that shows you the power of Le Mans. Like I said earlier, you never beat her. Just occasionally, she'll let you get away with it and let you have a bit of a result. And I think with the Lotus there, she was definitely smiling down on us.